Go.
About grit and grace is something that I feel we need both with balance in our life. But whereas how I was introduced to grace and is something that I will be telling you just a little bit about it. Um, this courage and this fighting spirit is something that I have constantly applied for 27 years of my life, and it was it was something that I needed to survive because of the choices that I've made, because of the things that I do, all of these things. But very recently in 2017 is when I was introduced to grace in my life. And that made me realize that it doesn't need much of a lot of things to find that or to be introduced to that grace, which is already present in us altogether. Because it's about finding the balance. One is going to tell you to fight and not leave it, and the other one is going to tell you to let it go. It's okay. So to have like a balance between the two is something that I struggled earlier, and now I'm since I was very recently introduced to this very part, which is grace, and now I'm kind of finding the balance between the two, and coming in terms with letting go aspect, coming in terms with not complicating a lot of things and simplifying it, which is very graceful in its very being. At the same time, having that spirit alive still somewhere, because you might need it anytime. So yeah, this is something that about the grit and grace is what I feel.
Welcome to Shruti Outloud, a podcast where I invite guests from different walks of life to share their stories of following their passion, success, and happiness, which in turn motivates our listeners to follow their heart. Hello, and welcome to another episode on Shruti Outloud Podcast. So, as you all know, we have dedicated the month of March to women. We are celebrating women. We are talking to women, we are talking about women, so it's all about the feminine power. And as you all must know that I have named this series Grit and Grace because that's what women bring, and that's what all our episodes are really about. So let's talk to our today's guest, and let me tell you a little bit about how we are going to take this episode ahead. So as you know that here we are celebrating women who embody the perfect blend of strength, perseverance, and resilience, along with poise, refinement, and elegance. And today we have an absolute rock star with us, a multidisciplinary artist who's been making her mark in the creative industry for over 12 years. She is a freelance graphic designer, illustrator, a mural artist with a passion for belly dance that she has been teaching for over 8 years. And if that wasn't enough, she is also the founder of the Musement Flow, a practice that helps people channel their inner power and connect with their center through intuitive movement. So, buckle up and get ready for a fun and insightful ride as we explore her journey as a creative woman and how she uses both grit and grace to create magic. Welcome to our today's episode, Shikha.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So, for our audience, I just want to let you know that, I have been talking to Shikha for quite a few months, and, we have been talking about how we have to bring her on board, how we have to talk to her. But somehow, things were really not just uh, falling in place. And I think it was for this reason, Shikha. What do you think about it? That, there's a reason behind all the delays and everything, and here you are on this series.
I think everything can wait and be in its own time when it has to happen. And I think this is the right time. And I feel ready right now, even more than I felt ready back then when we were speaking earlier. So, yes, divine time it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you on that because, um, like we would talk and we would decide, okay, let's record, let's do this, we'll do studio recording, we'll record here, we'll record there. But I think everything was somehow bringing us to this moment and to make this episode happen at this time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm very grateful that it's happening in this time, as I said, that I feel a little bit more ready to speak about my journey than I was earlier.
Absolutely. So, without any delays, and I'm very curious to ask you all these questions that I have written for you and to know more about your journey and what really brought you here. So, Shika, you are a multidisciplinary artist with experience in graphic design, illustration, mural art, and belly dance. So, how do these different forms of expression influence your work and inspire your creativity? Because, when we talk to you, you ooze out creativity. So yeah, let's just go there and let you answer the question.
Okay, so now this is like there are too many things here. So I see it as that I have like different identities, and these different identities have their different form of expressions. Let's say some like art, and then some have works with paint, some work with mixed media, some likes to dance. So it's a little complicated to understand, but this is how I'm going to explain it. Where let's say ABCD, this is all me, we meet midway through me, and all of them have different needs of expression, and each of them is very important. Not that one is more and the other one is less and whatever, all of these things, it isn't like that. So as I was a kid, it was the dance for me only which was going, exploring different things in terms of dance. And then as I was growing up, then art came in my being, and I was exploring art, only art. Then came the college aspect, where both the things were running parallelly, where I was pursuing fine arts and at the same time I was training for belly dancing. That's how it started back in 2012. So both the things were running very parallelly for me, and both the things were feeding me to a level where I needed both the things to happen. And I couldn't really choose one thing, and I was okay with the struggle too, because it was hard for me to kind of manage both the things, because there was hardly I used to get any sleep back then. So but I was ready for that kind of life that I wanted, and was fulfilling me to a different level, and I didn't know what it was back then. So that happened, and then eventually, once I was somewhere in between, I had to make few choices of just going up and low with what I want to do in that very phase. And then teaching happened at the same time, using the very wall art aspect to take freelance projects at the same time. So as I was exploring all of these things, I figured that they all are necessary to me. These are the things that I need to fulfill my expression, because say like movement for one day would work for me great in terms of my expression. The other day movement isn't helping me as much, you know then the art aspect comes, where I illustrate, and then the third day maybe it's just the paints and the hands and the mixed media that I want to work with, then that aspect comes in being. So until unless I explore all of these things, I wouldn't know what's working for me today, because that is something that you need to figure out for yourself, and it's going to be different for each day. That is also something that I developed and learned over time, that not every day I would want to dance, not every day that dance would feed me like it was yesterday. Then so it's because also I am into different things, so I know how to switch from one to another. It's like a game that I keep playing and exploring and finding that child in me back again through different mediums to fulfill the creative aspect that I feel that I have inside me. And um, and that leads to the release of the separation aspect, which is so much there inside me, because for 27 years I have felt numb inside the body, let's say. Even though I was in the expressive arts, I have still not felt expressing through the arts, you see. Um, because this body just knew how to shut itself, you see, and then everything was about imitating. I was doing all of these things, but I was still imitating and not feeling it,
Right.
you see. So that's why it was just switching from one to another, switching from one to another, seeing what's working, not working, blah blah blah, all of these things. But this all of these things of suppression, emotions, numbingness, that came out of the very fact, which was reflection. Once I thought about it, as to why do I have these many things that I keep want to keep going in it, and then if I don't serve these different identities, as I said, then there's an urge that that leads me to constantly keeps telling me that, okay, this is something that you have to create, this is something that you have to do right now. So that urge is something that leads me to the release of my own creativity through those different mediums. And if I don't fulfill, then I'm very restless. So this is how I got to know for myself that these are the things that I am gifted with, and I need to honor it. So I need to have separate time, separate need to know rather what's working for me in which time frame. You see, and it all comes with exploration. It all comes with spending time with the craft. If you don't spend time with the craft, you will never know. You might do it, but still you will not know as to, is it something that you are really emoting, is it something that you're really expressing. So all of these things came a lot later in terms of expression, in terms of realization. Um, but this is how it serves me creatively altogether.
So it's about basically just going with the flow, as in, help me understand this a little. That a lot of times, what happens is that, you set your schedules because you want to sort of, keep exploring that creativity in you. And you set aside a particular time or day or whatsoever that, okay, at this time I'll do this. But then you are not really listening to your heart. You're not really listening to the creativity that is inside you. So, what would be your take about this? That is, should it be more about sticking to the schedules, or should it be more about, going with the flow and letting yourself get immersed in the creativity?
Okay, so this is a very subjective question, because it might depend on person to person what really works for them. Maybe a structure works for them to start with, to tap into that flow that they have of their own. Maybe no structure works for them, and it is just about going with the flow and seeing where it leads you. You see, so it depends on what works for that individual. I can say about me what works for me
Hmm.
in this case,
Yeah,
but I won't be able to say it for other people because it might be very
right.
different for them. Ki, if you have to tap into your creativity, what is that process for you? It might be very different for me. It might be very different for you. You see, so
Yeah.
for me, it has shifted like that, to
Uh-huh.
a point to a point where I had to, while I was starting to find the creative aspect of me inside back, which was in 2017, I had to make a structure for myself, to give myself a direction that this is where I'm headed. This is where what I need to do to find that love back or the fun back, which leads me to my creativity. So, this is how it started for me when I had to find it again for myself. But eventually, while I was in it, I didn't have to structure it. It just was flowing then. And it was just coming, that structure or that flow was coming to me on its own as to how to go from one to another. And then next day, one to another. So then it went like this for me. And now also, once I feel a little disconnected with my own self, I need to have a structure, a little bit of direction to be able to tap into that very state of flow, rather, or creativity. This is how it works for me, and it has worked for me in the past.
Yes, I think I agree with you here that, it's a mix and match of being structured and flowing freely. So, as per how you are feeling in that moment, I think you have to give yourself that freedom to either structure it or flow freely like a river.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have to first feel it to be able to know what it is. You know, if you
Right.
don't feel it enough, you will not know.
So true. So true. All right, Shika. So, can you tell us a bit more about the amusement flow and how it helps people connect with their centers, and how does this practice differ from traditional forms of movement and meditation? And if you could maybe tell us some examples either from your own flows or from your students.
Sure. Okay, so I will first tell you what musement flow is, what musement is first, and how did this word develop for me as musement. So, like I said, that I started working on my own self from 2017, where that was a phase where I was very, very low in my life. It was amalgamation of a lot of things coming down to the saturation, which was to 2017, where I just couldn't process anything in the mind. My mind was shut, my body was shut already from the past 27 years, but my mind was now not able to give me any directions. It was that bad. I couldn't form even one sentence. It was that bad, let's say. So, in that state, while I was in it, I felt, I asked myself this question as to, is there somebody else who can help me? Or is it just me? So the answer that I got was, for someone, was a no. And because I couldn't trust anybody around me back then. And while I was in that process, that do I trust the other person or do I trust me, I didn't trust me also, but I did have one clarity of trusting my own self, just a 0.1%. That's it. That much clarity I had, thankfully. So I thought that, okay, this 0.1% is good to go, good to work with, and that's how I started working on myself. That's how I started to find the love back into my dancing, the love back into my movement, which had disappeared. It was nowhere close to me. I was really deep into the ground. It was just nowhere close to me. So it was Very, very hard to show up for my own self every day. Very, very hard back then. But I didn't know any other way. So I had to do it. I had to do it. So that's where I gave myself the direction for to work for my own self, to find, to rediscover where that love has gone, you see. So that's how it started for me, while when I say that I started working on my own self. Then comes 2020, after the lockdown or the lockdown. After 1 or 2 months only, I had a vision. I had a vision of a movement of of a spine, and that vision was flashed 4 5 times inside, and I didn't pay really attention to it for the first 2 or 3 times. But then once I saw it over and over again, I thought to myself, okay, this is something I need to pay attention to, because I'm seeing it again and again. And I couldn't understand what it was, because I was barebacked. My back was bare. There were no clothes on it. And I could see a back moving. This is what the vision was about. So I didn't understand what this is and why am I seeing it over and over again. So then one day I decide to put the camera in front of me, because it's a movement where I have to face down, like in a child pose. That is where I have to be. And in that position, the spinal waves are happening. This is what is happening in that vision. So I can't see myself also while doing it. I had to kind of keep the camera in front of me. So I put on the camera, I take off my clothes, and I be in that position, and I start to move the things that I had seen up here. And I'm clueless. I'm clueless as to what is happening. So I come up, I see the recording now, and I have goosebumps, all over, because it is exactly what I saw, and I couldn't understand what this is. Why is this? Not even what. Why me? I started questioning all of these things for me. um, and but it felt something else in the body while watching it, also while doing it also. It just felt something which is not of the world. It felt like that. So once I discovered it, i I spent one whole year practicing it, exploring with it, with the dance that I was trained in, which is belly dancing. I spent one whole year just into my practice. Like I was so busy that I can't even explain. With all of those things happening in the world, which was ugly, back then. So feeling all the pain, feeling all that intensity of emotions all around, and then this movement coming into being, exploring that, doing it over and over again, spending time with it for 2 3 hours in a day, that led me to an understanding of what and why it has come to me. Because it took me a while to even honor or to even accept that it has come to me, you see, because it was so unreal. And I am the biggest critique of my own life, like I would question so many things. I would see so many. I would criticize me to a level where, okay, this is something that you don't deserve, so it has been like that. And all of this is also stemming from the past experiences, that why am I like this. So I was still in that zone of criticizing my own self and not believing in the vision that I had got. It took me a while to accept it. It took me a while to honor it. Um, Coming to the understanding of why and what it was doing to me, that got me to an understanding that since it's a spinal movement And the initiation of this movement is happening from the base of your spine, which is your tailbone, which is connected to your pelvic floor. And that is where your center is, which connects you to below your navel. That's the part that you are connected to, and that is where the initiation happens of that movement, of the spine movement that I am talking about. And if that initiation happens in the right way, you will find a balance that goes up, that transfers up in the wave. If that initiation is somewhere in between, you might not feel it as much as you go up. So, when I say that it connects better with your center, this is what I mean. That the more you explore it, the more you are into it, you will find that balance of your own center, which is going to shift the alignment of your own self and your own structure, which is going to be very different from mine and yours. You see? So for me, it's going to be different. For you, it's going to be different. So I can't possibly tell you that you have to hold in this certain position. But what if that certain position isn't very comfortable for you? But I tell you that you have to hold it here because that's your center. No, I can't do that. You might injure yourself after a while. How long can your body take it? It won't be long. So that's what I discovered, that the range might differ, the control might differ. All of these things that will differ because we have different bodies, because we have different body structures. But at the same time, our experiences can be same. You know, it doesn't have to, you don't have to go in my range. You have to stick to your range. And how will you stick to your range and control once you figure out what it is for you? And once you figure out your range and control aspect from the pelvic floor, it is going to shift you to a very sweet spot where your body is going to feel comfortable and move in a way which feels amazing and full of comfort, doesn't have to be challenging. So this is what I mean by saying that that this is how it connects you to your center. To explore that, you need time. You need to give yourself patience to be able to figure that out. Because having said that, I have been practicing belly dancing for over 10 years now, and belly dancing is again using your pelvic floor. Mostly it's all about that, but nobody told me all of these things that I'm telling you right now. I have trained from so many national and international teachers, but nobody came across in this sense, the way the understanding developed after the spine movement came to me. So, belly dancing per se, like now, if I have to teach somebody belly dancing, it's even better because of this understanding. Earlier, while I was doing everything, now when I got the spine movement, and now when I do the same things, it all feels new. It is that shift that I experienced. Like, I've been doing the same movement for 10 years, and then I do the same movement with a different understanding. It feels new. It feels, oh my God, why was I not doing this? Why didn't I experience this? So, everything is based on experiencing it, not the visual. It might look the same. It might look the same, but it might not feel the same. That is the difference. So 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 this is what Musement Flow did to me. This is what the spine movement did to me in my understanding. And why Musement is because, as I said, that in 2017 is where I shifted my approach to my own self. So I became my own muse. to work on as a subject, and that's why it's called the Musement Flow. And while I was exploring and working on myself, there were many, many practices and there were many, many tools that came into my practice to me. Again, not read, not through somebody else, but from somewhere, some other source, probably where the vision had come from. That got me into a very, very meditative state where there would be days where I would just be chanting. There would be days where I would just be doing one movement over and over again, and that repetition put me into a state of hypnosis, and that led to a very, very different experience. So just stating the two as an example of my practices. So so this is how the Musement Flow has developed, and that flow is a state. That's why it's a flow. So through those practices, through those tools, you need to tap into a state, which is the state of flow, which requires time, which requires just feeling a lot of things and letting it come out. Because in this whole process, there were many, many days where I was just sitting and crying. You see, there were many, many days where I was just reflecting and journaling, many, many days, to understand and to untangle my own self, and to understand, okay, this is how it used to be and this is how it's shifting for me. So this is the kind of, as an example, the kind of state that I tap into for my own self. And I think it's been 2 to 3 years that I have been providing and offering it to the world like that, in private sessions or in group settings, in retreat formats. So I offer these Musement Flow sessions in those formats as well. Yeah, so it's amazing. It fulfills me to a level which is very, very different from what I have been experiencing in the past 10 years with belly dancing.
Right. Shika, so from my understanding from what you just said, so this vision, it really helped you connect with who you are, which was possibly, missing all these years. You were doing all of these things, and maybe they were like you were there, but you were not there. Maybe they were a bit superficial in the sense that you were doing it, but the
Doing it.
connection that you feel, that was not there. And maybe, yeah, this is what you really needed, and you just, it presented itself to you that, okay, you have given a lot to this. Now, this is the direction that you need to flow in.
Hmm, hmm,
Yeah.
Correct, correct, correct. Absolutely, absolutely. It was a gift that I received, and receiving, coming to this very aspect, receiving was very hard, because I am very much, as I said, very critical and conditioned to not receive anything as a woman. So so tapping into the femininity, embracing the femininity, because the few videos that I do is something that doesn't have clothes in the back. It's bare back. So to
Yeah.
be able to project that, I have to tap into the vulnerable state that I am. I have to tap into the consequences that come altogether by being naked from the top, let's say. So
Yeah.
all of these things are attached to what I do, which makes me very, very vulnerable and very, very guarded at the same time. Because for the longest time, I have been a person where I was told not to be too sexy, not to be too showy, even though I was doing belly dancing. Like, this was the contrast. I was in a very, very toxic environment, where we were doing all of those things, pursuing all of those things, yet told not to be too much. You see, so
Mm,
that toxic. So, and the sad part is, or the surprising part is, that I never thought of being too much. I never thought of
which
being
is
too.
being you.
I never
Yeah,
thought. I never put that intention into any of the things that I created. It was
right.
just reflecting on its own, and I thought it was a problem. I was made
Mm,
to think it was a problem. Oh my
right.
God, that's another whole story altogether. But once I got into this very aspect of musement flow and having the bare back, everything just didn't make sense that I was told not to do, you know. Because right now also I'm not doing all of those things for somebody else. I'm not being too much for somebody else. I can be way more in my own being than just too much. Too much is just nothing, you see. And all of those things took me into my power, which is my femininity. You know, it might be different for everybody, but to embrace that part that I have been probably hiding or telling myself that it's wrong, there's something wrong with that part, was a task to give it off all away, you know, to let it all go and say, okay, this is who I am. I was that also, but I was hiding it because I thought it was a problem. Now this has come through a vision which is telling me to be this. You know, at the same time I am not projecting for attention. You see, that's the difference between the too much and you can be way more, you see. So this is what I
Yeah,
realized over time through Musement Flow, to tap into the femininity and to embrace it. Because as women, we are told that, this is
right.
nothing, to hide it.
Right. So, yeah, it was about breaking the walls that the society had created and breaking the walls that you had created.
Hmm.
So, I think this is what the process has been about. And yeah, I really hope that through this episode, our listeners, our audience are also able to understand that, you have to break the walls, and not just the societal walls, but the walls even that we create, because we are sort of, put in a people try to put you in your place. What is that place, and who is anybody else to define that? So yeah, just all you have to do is break all the walls and just create your space.
Exactly. You need to give yourselves the space to be who you are. That is where the freedom lies. And if you don't give yourself the space, if you keep possessing things or possessing that very space, your own being, then it's not freedom at all. And then you'll keep searching for freedom somewhere else, because it's not somewhere else. It's not outside at all. You will always feel possessed or some other XYZ manipulations coming from outside than freedom. It's you giving your own self the space to feel that freedom, because now you are giving it to yourself.
So true, Shikha. So, Shikha, as a woman in the creative industry, what challenges have you faced? I know that you have mentioned a few things in the past few minutes, and but if you could maybe tell us a bit more about that, and how did you overcome all of those, and how do you use creativity to empower yourself and other women? Maybe if you could emphasize a little more on that part, and yeah, help our listeners understand that.
Okay, about the challenges first. Now, challenges have been every second, every moment that I have faced. Doing it belly dancing, doing it as a choice of mural artist, or let's say amusement. That's the biggest one. So the choices that I have made, they have all been challenging, and they have all been very hard for my family to accept, because I'm a woman, and nobody in my family have made such choices, let's say. So it's very unusual for them to also experience that. What is she doing? Why is she doing this? I mean, with the kind of art that she has, she can also do a 9 to 5 job. She can be a graphic designer in an art agency, let's say. She can also do something else which the world is also doing, most in the most part. But when I tried to work, but it didn't work for me. I tried to do a desk job, but it didn't work for me. I was so depleted. I was so bored. I was so all of those things that I just ran. I just ran from that space. It was very unethical for me to do that without informing them, leaving the space. But I was what, 21, 22 back then. This is how where I tried, and then suddenly from college I've met few good people where we decided to form like a group for wall art, and we were getting projects, like good projects we were getting at the same time. So shifting that canvas from a paper to a wall was a very liberating experience. I mean, I was doing the same thing on a say paper, but when the entire canvas shifted, all my um, mixed media aspect came in being, because then there were many more things that was possible. It felt like that, and I enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed painting walls than just a paper. Not that I don't do it now. I still do it on papers, on tabs here and there. But just as an experience of painting on walls has been very, very liberating for me. So when I chose to do this for 5, 6 years of my life, I had to fight for it because I was not allowed to do it. I had to fight my way through it, because there were the timings were so odd of painting walls. Mostly it involved so much of travel. It involved so much of late nights or overnights, because I was painting walls in cafes and hostels, which were rather newly made, or were working where you can only work when there are no people around. So so I had to fight for that. And then came the belly dance, where to continue it, again I had to fight it to continue it, because after the very first class only I had thought about that. Oh my god, this is something that I need to do, not for taking it professionally somewhere, but for now in this moment I need it, like that. And each day it felt like that. Till now it feels like that. So this is what I realized with belly dancing, and then I wanted to continue it. And to be able to continue it, I had to fight again, because I was not earning back then, and it was my parents who were paying for my fees of training, of classes. So I had to do that too. And then one fine day, when I say that, the dance has come to me on its own, one fine day I had realized that, okay, because my parents were just not agreeing कि ये तो नहीं करोगे तुम, ये continue नहीं करोगे तुम. So I made peace with it. I was just not agreeing to the very fact. And then I thought, once I start earning, I will get back to it. I'll get back to my training. This is how I made my peace with it. Now I go and attend one demo class which was happening very near to my place, and then I thought that, okay, this is my last class, and now I will only be able to get back once I start to earn. Now in that class there was an instructor where where she came to me and then she said, "Are you coming?" Like, she recognized me because I had done the classes with her, I had done a show with her, everything. So she recognized me and everything. And I used to really like her, you know. She was very influential too at the same time. So I was like, I just said, no, my parents are not agreeing, I'm not coming. I was very disappointed, everything. And then I just put it like forward like that, you know, maybe you can talk to them. That's it. Just like a very kiddish thing. Maybe you can talk to them. Because why I also said that is because my parents were coming to pick me up and we had to go somewhere. You know, that was also like a timing that happened. Where they might have met my mother too. And then she's like, yeah, why not? I'll talk to her. I'm like, what? And then my mother comes and then they're having a chat. And one line she says, my mother agrees. I'm like, I've been
Nice.
saying this for weeks. You need an influential person to be able to convince you every time. My God, that was bizarre, but it worked in favor of me. So, this is
Yeah.
how I'm able to continue it and not have a gap in between. So I was like, that day felt like magic. You know, I was like, wow, it's possible. You know, where just when I had thought that I have to leave it, it opened its door to me on its own, and then I was like, yes, I was so happy. I was so happy कि ये possible हो गया है. So this is how I was able to continue it because an influential person told my mother or my parents as to she should do this. It's parents, you know, it's very funny in my head. So
They understood what she said, but not what you were saying.
exactly. Like, doesn't make sense, but still makes sense because
Yeah.
they're parents.
It, yeah.
Yeah, so this is how it happened. So this is one of the major challenges that I faced to continue it, you know. And then while I was in it for say 3 4 years now, then I was doing shows. I was doing other corporate shows, let's say, other events, um, the shows of the very school that I was working in now. So while doing that, there were challenges of costuming because you need to wear a bra and a skirt. You know, your costume needs to be a little showy of your belly, you see. Um, so I still remember that there was one costume trial which was happening where we were deciding as to how we need to make our costumes basically. So there was a bra that was involved and there was a skirt. Now, coming to the terms of the slit in the skirt. Now, the slit comes on the side so that your leg is visible, you know. So we were deciding the length of the slit. And personally, we wanted like a higher length because then it's more flowy, then there is more space and everything attached to it. But then at the same time, there was a thought that passed my head saying that, yeah, my parents are going to be coming to watch the show. And then I'm like, थोड़ी ना थोड़ी नीचे कर लेते हैं. So so all of these things you have to keep in mind. Acha, parents are going to come to watch the show. This is how you will be wearing. So you have to find a kind of midway, and sometimes you can't even find that midway for a lot of things because this is what is required for what you do, you know. So challenging in clothing. And then while you're doing events, the people who hire you for the events are not always coming from a good intention. So you have to be very very guarded there, you see. So that's another level of challenge as to who is that company or the person who is approaching for belly dancers, let's say, you see. So that challenge. And when I started in 2012, belly dancing was not as much in terms of talking or shown on television like it is right now. So it was more of a hush hush situation back then, still. So I still remember my parents would be hesitant of telling anybody that I do belly dancing, you see, because it was more hush hush back then. And I think they are still in that zone for most reasons, because there are other things attached to belly dancing other than just this. And so, having the challenge of event people not coming with good intentions to hire us, that's another one. And then, once the other person, so if you're introducing yourself to somebody, you add belly dancing to it as your professional dance form, the entire intention changes as you're talking, as you're speaking with that person, who's taking your introduction. So, and that shift is so much visible, because now you're in this glamorous zone for that person, that, oh, it's all body then now, so that's another challenge. For whenever you have to introduce yourself to somebody, you have to be very careful who you're introducing to, and then what you're mentioning, and then see what comes across their eyes, coming to the body aspect. That's a huge altogether different challenge, because the kind of clothes you're wearing is needs a certain type of skin show. Now, as you're showing your skin, some bodies might be heavy, some might not be heavy. So, body shaming is one of the biggest one that is attached to your belly dance. You see, so that is something that I've seen so much happening in front of my eyes, because not everybody is comfortable with their bodies, and then on top of it you make them realize that this is something not looking nice, or this part is something which is very heavy. Say anything, any crap thing, they are going to be affected, because they know, and they've been told this so many times. So it's very hard for people to get themselves to that surface from all the shame, from all the guilt that they've had in terms of body, in terms of, let's say, from families, because I've had so many students coming in, telling me that, my parents don't know that I belly dance, that I have joined classes. So I have heard so many stories that how they don't support, and I completely understand. So these are many different challenges that are attached to the very dance form that I do, and it's not very pretty or glamorous like we look on stage, that we have to project on stage. But regardless, we choose this because it's something that's feeding our soul, and if people think that we don't know what they're thinking, they're mistaken. They're mistaken. Because in my experience, I can say, speak for myself. In my experience, I've been seeing bodies moving for a lot of times. Like, it's been a while, and I've and the bodies speak for itself. What kind of experiences they are coming from. It is something, once you start moving, you just cannot lie. You just cannot hide that language of the body, because it will show everything that it remembers in its experience, unless you've dealt with it, unless you've worked for it. You see, so everything is going to come on the surface, because while you're moving, there's too many things that goes around, and then either you're here or you're just in your body, you see. So it's very hard to not show. It's very hard to not show. And it's a very vulnerable space. Once you start moving, once you start dancing, it's a vulnerable space that you create for yourself, because now you're giving space for your body to move. Earlier you've never given that space, and the more it moves, the more it shakes, the more you breathe, the more things come out than staying inside. So, this is how it flows altogether. This is why movement per se is very important for me. And movement of any kind doesn't have to be just dance, any kind. This is how it shifts inside. So this is about few challenges that I have faced over time, and I still do. It's not like it's gone. It's always there. You always have to be guarded. You always have to, because there's nobody else to protect you. It's just you. One wrong decision, and you end up in shit intentions of people, you see, because this is how it's looked for the longest time. This is how they have spoken about it for the longest time, and itemized women to a level which is so shitty. It is so shitty. It's a very vulnerable space to be in, and if you choose this, you know what all things that are attached to around to being around this space, because it's hard to survive sometimes, and another one more major aspect of a challenge here is the money. You don't earn like somebody earning in a desk job, let's say, having a desk job, or a fixed salary that's coming to your bank account. So that's another aspect where you have to struggle to get projects. You have to struggle to have or teach people like that, gather people, gather events, all of these things. So this is another factor that is attached to the very challenge, which is money. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of challenges that do come your way, but the only way is to just keep acknowledging them and keep finding a way to, okay, all right, you are there. I recognize you. I see you, but I am going to get past you.
Right. You have to build that awareness, and that only happens through experiences.
Right.
There is no other way. There is no other way. You have to experience to deal better the next time, to find a better job next time, rather. You see. So that's the only way, and it's all about how you develop that awareness. If you don't have that awareness, then yes, people are going to take advantage of you. It is going to be there because you're putting yourself out there like that, and it's very difficult to recover from after you've put yourself out there. It's difficult to recover in that time frame, because then it's all out there, so yes, you have to build that awareness, and you have to work for that awareness so that because it's your body which is involved. It's it's everything of your own that is involved. It's not a laptop that you are giving to somebody to work on. No, it's not a phone that you can use. It is not that. It's your physical body where there is your mental, emotional, every state that's present. And once it gets messed up, all of these things are going to messed up, be affected altogether, not like just mentally or not just physically. Everything goes for a toss together, you see. So you have to build that awareness, and I was not very in my experience, it came to me a lot later, this awareness, in my experience. So that's why I say that if you are choosing something like this, you have to build this awareness of not throwing yourself everywhere, not taking every opportunity that comes your way. You have to choose very wisely as to what you need in that moment, and what are you getting from that moment. Because a lot of times the exchange of energy isn't balanced a lot of times in our jobs. Because like I said, we are mostly we are underpaid underpaid. So yeah, you have to, like, this is for the young people who are listening probably. You have to build this awareness, and if your teacher doesn't tell you this in an early stage, you're going to figure it out in a later stage, like me. Yeah.
Well, Shikha, you have already answered the question that I was coming up to, and that was, yeah, that, if you could give any advice, and you have already, I think, given the best of it all. So, lastly, I would like to thank you for being a part of this and sharing your story and sharing all the challenges, because, I think you have created a lot of awareness through this episode, which I'm sure a lot of people don't really come across, because people like to hold back a lot of things, and you have just basically shared it all. So I have to thank you so much that thank you for being so honest, and thank you for sharing everything that you could. I'm
It's
sure
my
this is going to be helpful to a lot of people.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Like, the moment I get a chance to tell you something that you're on a journey
Mm.
and you might experience, I'm the first one. I'm the first
Right.
one. Listen, you need to know this. You might not apply it, but you need to know this. You might
Yeah.
face it. You might come across such a thing, because this is something that I didn't get it back in my
Yeah.
journey. And I make sure to my students who are with me, I make sure how to develop on
Very.
these different things that are attached. Not that somebody has to take this professionally. No. Even if you are coming for one class as an experience, you need to know what that experience is for yourself. What has
Yes.
it done to you? And what the dance
Right.
can do for you.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Shikha, lastly, can you let the audience know where they can get in touch with you if they want to do some online or offline session, and what is the best way to contact you?
So the best way to contact me is through my social media, which is Shikha_Thakur. That's my main handle, and that's where I take mostly all the projects from, apart from my number or my email. So best way is to get in contact with me through my social media, and then we can take it forward on a mail from there once I get in touch with you for my classes.
All right, Shikha, thank you so much for taking out time for this. And hopefully, I will possibly, jump in on one of your workshops or one of your classes and be a part of this movement. I would love
Yes.
to.
Yes. You're most welcome.
Yes. Yes, I think I definitely do want to experience everything that you just said. And yes, I will be doing that very soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It
Thank you,
was so,
Shikha. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing in grit and grace to this episode.
it was my pleasure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys. So, thank you for joining us for this episode. And remember, just like our guest, we can all use grit and grace to achieve our goals and make a positive impact on this world. So hopefully we will see you in the next episode as well, where will where we will be featuring where we will be featuring another inspiring woman, and who will be bringing grit and grace to the series that we are working on this month of March. Thank you. Shruti Out Loud welcomes all stories. It can be a brand, it can be an organization, or it can be a person. The only thing common would be passion for life. Please subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Ghana Podcast, and every other platform where you can hear this. Please leave a review as that helps my podcast to grow. Thank you once again. See you for the next episode. Bye.